بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أفلا يتدبرون القرآن ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا
Before we start, I'm going to do kind of a collective thing, just like a calm thing, because I know you're stressed about it. We're all stressed about it, so we're going to, I'll give an example of what we're going to do. So basically, breathe in, count to 5. Breathe it. So you breathe it and then you hold it, and then when you breathe it out, you're like. So I'll do an example of it, and we'll do it like 3 times. So.
Can you count for us?
Alright, so. Alright, go on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do it one more time. That's the last thing to do. So, I'm going to start with my kind of challenge. So, I'm going to start with a challenge. Basically, what I want you to imagine, you've got 1 year, and in that year, each day, you have to make up 10 words. So each day, 365 days, each day you make up 10 words. And those 10 words have to be about the meaning of life, basically. But in those 10 words, you have to include things that we don't know yet. So in those total, so when you have the 10 words a day, by the end of 1 year you have the total amount of words which you'll put together in like one total amount of words. And within those words, it has to include things we don't know yet. So an example would be, what's on the other side of a black hole would have to be included within those 10 words. So you have to basically guess what's to come. You with me so far?
No.
Does anybody know where? Anybody get what I'm saying?
I don't understand.
Where have we got
You want to explain? Okay. So like you have every day you make up 10 words, and then at the end of for 365 days for the whole year, and at the end of the year, so in those 10 words you have to include things that you don't know. So for example, the weather tomorrow, or like what
Something
makes up the
bigger
constitutions of tea, or something like that. Something you just don't know that nobody knows. And then in the end of the 365 days, you have to summarize it all in 10 words.
Those 10 words come together as one whole, so it'd be like 3,650 words basically. You get it? Also included in that, you've got to like prophesize things to come. So you've got to kind of like things which you don't know yet, as well as things that are going to happen. For example, you could say the Ottoman Empire will return in 6 years. Has to be included in that. And at the end of the year, all these things have to be correct. So the question is this possible?
No.
No? No. So hold that thought.
Not for a week.
Not for us.
Right, so we'll move on to talk about the topic of the talk is miracles. But actually, Islamic, Arabic speaking, there's no word miracle. And so the studies, anyone know the study? Any Arabic speaking people? The Ijaz of Qur'an. You heard that before?
Ijaz al-Qur'an.
Ijaz of Qur'an. So,
إعجاز القرآن.
Ijaz of Qur'an.
Miracle.
Ijaz of Qur'an means ajiz, which means unable. So, Ijaz of Qur'an is basically, so it means unable, or it means to be broke. So I'll give an example. So for example, if he tries to stand up, He's usually known as like wajiz, so he's unable to get up. So the reason why the miracles of the Qur'an is called Ijaz al-Qur'an is because the things within the Qur'an, you study what parts of the Qur'an so it literally means you won't be able to get up, but it means you can't, like, there's no other way apart from the book being divine. So this is the boring bit. And an example of this is Umar bin Khattab. When he became Muslim, he was actually on his way to kill the Prophet, and he heard his sister became Muslim. So he went back to his sister, and when he went back, he heard the recitation of Surah Al-Qur'an, and just by hearing it, he became Muslim. So you would say he was anti-Islam, and after hearing it, after hearing the Qur'an, he wasn't able to argue against it, meaning he was mu'ajjiz. So he was brought to his knees by the Qur'an, which is basically what this study is. So just some background for you. So why are we interested in this study? So actually the Qur'an tells us why we should be interested in this study. Because anyone knows the story of Abraham, when he asked for a sign? Anybody know?
You asked, is this when he saw the moon?
That's after that. So basically he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show him a sign, or to show him how he gives life to the dead. You know? And so he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replied and said, do you not believe? And Ibrahim as-Salam replied with, yes, I believe in you, and I believe you are my Lord, but I want to see a sign, or you could call it a miracle, to have stronger faith in my heart. So that's the reason why we study, why people study this thing, or why we should study as well, is because through that, the iman will become stronger. So you've already mentally you've already decided this is the Qur'an, this is the word of Allah. But by looking at these miracles, you become stronger in faith. And what are we, your heart becomes more tight to faith. And what are we judged for on the day of judgment? Is it our brain? Our heart. So we have to improve our heart. So this is one way we could do that. And as well, when I was talking to some people about this topic, they were like, it's not relevant, it's not this, it's not that. But this was a prophet who was asking this question for a sign. So a prophet who obviously has spoken directly with God asked for a sign. So obviously we're having to believe a revelation however many years after it came. We have every right to ask, we want a sign. So we look in the Qur'an and we look at the revelation to find these signs. So that's the reason why we should study. So, miracles. What are miracles? Again, I'm going to ask you anyone. An example of a miracle, of the past. So, you could define it as something beyond human, or something beyond our capability. An example would be like Jesus, the story we told when Jesus performed miraculous miracles. People saw him bringing the dead to life and saw curing people with uncurable diseases. Another example would be like Moses, the story we told about splitting the sea. Which actually I've got a side point on. Shems? But you can all just stand up for a second. Yeah. It's like, imagine you guys being the splitting so you guys are the splitting of the sea. When Musa split the sea, you guys are the two walls of the sea. And so we're walking through this. Can you imagine the faith of somebody who sees this with their own eyes, who actually sees walking through this? I would if you saw that with your own eyes, what would you do? If you saw it with your own eyes, then you'd have, it's going to massively, you're going to be 100% that this person who's just told you is a prophet is true what he's saying. So again, I'm going to ask you again, what question? When I said, if you see this thing with your own eyes, and you become 100% sure of the truth that is this. So what question comes to mind, or what point comes to mind about us today? Like,
What do you mean?
so like, the person saw that with his own eyes, or she saw that with their own eyes, and was sure that this is the truth. So they saw basically a miracle in front of their own eyes and were 100% sure this is the truth. So the today we can't actually see that with our own eyes, can we? We can't see this. We can't walk through the sea split into two halves. So that's basically a story that we have to believe. So, any other questions come to mind?
What do we have now? What miracles can we count?
What do we have today? So again, you've got to hold that thought as well. So, the Qur'an. What is the Qur'an? So it's Muslims, or all of us believe, it's a revelation from God revealed through the Prophet Muhammad. But that we believe is the miracle. So the Prophet wasn't sent just for his people, you know. So for example, the miracles that other prophets came with, they were restricted. The prophets were sent just to the people of their time, meaning that the miracles they came with were visual, so everyone could see them with their own eyes. But we can't actually see that, can we? But the Prophet was sent for the whole of mankind, so the people at that time, the time when the Prophet was alive, and now. So the question is, what is the miracle we have? And we believe it's the Qur'an. And so actually, when I looked into this, there's vast amount of like information people who've looked. So they've done the study of the Qur'an. So looking at the signs of the Qur'an and looking at what's in it that's superhuman, like beyond what we can. And there's so many that there's too many to like give examples. But basically, I study a science-based subject. So the examples I'm going to give are based on science, which are the ones I looked into and confirmed that. Because again, there's a lot of people make claims, and there's no way for me to confirm that was the claim they made was true. So this is the reason why you'll notice they're all going to be science-based. So one, for example, the Qur'an goes into quite detail about the creation, the creation of the universe. So in chapter 21, verse 30, it says, "Do they not see that the heavens and the earth were once a joint entity, and that we separated them?" So, what can we check from that? What does that exactly mean? So, when the Quran says heavens, it means beyond earth. So we've got the earth, we've got the heavens means beyond earth. So it means the universe basically was one joint entity, and we separated it. But obviously the Prophet could have just guessed that coincidence. So the next one is, it also talks about the expansion of the universe, where it said, there's two interpretations of this verse. It said, one of them is, it is we who created the heavens, and it is us who expand it, which is one interpretation. The second is the same as the first, so it says, it is we who created the heavens, and it is we who created the vastness of space. So both could say, accurately describe what's beyond the earth, which is, again, to put in context, 1,400 years ago was there such thing as a telescope. Was there such thing as Google search, where you could just search and find? No. So, but then again, coincidence. So again, another verse talks about the moon, and how if we erase everything from our mind, we just look at the moon, and we saw its light, we probably saw it, maybe it has its own light, maybe. But the Qur'an clearly says that the moon actually, the light doesn't actually come from the moon, the light is reflected off the moon. But then again, coincidence again. Another aspect was saying every living thing comes from water. So everything's made out of water. So there's different verses that talk about water. Some of the verses say we come from water. So a lot of them say we are made from water, or created man from water. But then again, another coincidence. Plants. It talks about plants created as male and female. So as two. So if we just went out and looked at a plant, would we be able to see whether it's a male or a female? Yes?
Yes. Otherwise, how would have we been doing farming all along? You always need to make sure that a male and a female plant is together.
Coincidence?
People didn't farm flowers though. People farmed grain and stuff like that, so it's completely different too.
But it's the same case for grains.
Possible.
Yeah, but the way they farm it is not that they mix the genders to farm it. That's not how
That's
they
how
do
they
it.
do it.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
They don't pick a male grain and a female grain together.
They don't pick them together.
So that one could have been coincidence. So he also talks about the creation of us. So it talks about before, when we're in the womb, the stages of what we created in detail. So what happens first, what happens second, what happens third, what happens fourth. I don't actually have the verse written down, so I can't go into more detail about that. And it also says we are made from clay, and it also says we are made from mud in two separate parts, which you could reflect on that and say, if you look at what clay or mud is made out of, what the base of it is made out of, what's it made out of? Carbon. And what are we mostly made out of? Carbon. So that's, but then again, coincidence again. So you probably notice I've said coincidence and you could have guessed it and you could have a lot. So the question to leave you, to say actually is, like, how many coincidences does it take to realise to, like, a lot of guesses becoming correct? You have to think maybe there's something more to it than just guessing and coincidence. And as I said, they were just science-based kind of aspects of the Qur'an. But there's many others that are much more. This is like a very, very, like maybe 1% of the study. There's huge amount of studies on language of the Qur'an. For example, the way Omar, as I said a second ago, the way he became converted was just by hearing the Qur'an. So by hearing the language. There's mathematical things in there. There's prophecies. For example, when I said the Ottoman Empire coming back, there is a verse in the Qur'an that talks. Basically, when the Qur'an was revealed, it was the Arabian Peninsula, and further over towards Europe, there was the Byzantine Empire. And the Byzantine Empire was actually falling, crumbling. So, and the Qur'an came and said, the believers of Rome, that verse said, Rome has been defeated in a land close. And the scholars looked at it and said, it's describing the Byzantine Empire. They said it's collapsing, but in a few years it will come back. Which it did. Which if you said today, which is why I gave the example of the Ottoman Empire, it's the same as saying in 5-6 years the Ottoman Empire will return. You think crazy. It's never going to happen. But that was exactly the same as saying at that time, so the Rome will come back when it happens. So that's just one example. There's another example, is a study where they look for contradictions or errors, and we've not been able to find these. And there's the preservation of the Qur'an as well, how it's kept the same since Revelation till now is a miracle in itself. And the Qur'an actually has a challenge, which many of you will already know. I'll read directly from here. It says, and if you are in doubt as to what we have revealed from time to time to our servant, then produce a surah, chapter, like it, and call your witnesses or helpers besides Allah, if you are true. Meaning, the shortest chapter is 10 words, which is why I said 10 words. Produce a chapter like that, if you think this is anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the next verse actually says, and it says as well, call any helpers you want, anybody you want. If you want to get the top language professor to help you, if you want to get the top scientist to help you, if you want to get the top whatever to help you, the astrologist or whatever, to help you write it, you can do that. And the next verse says, but if you cannot, and certainly you cannot, so the Quran is saying you won't be able to create anything like this, then fear the fire whose fuel is men and stones, which is prepared for those who reject faith. Quite a powerful verse to reflect. Close to the end now, don't worry. Another kind of like activity is, I want you all to close your eyes. And imagine, keep your eyes closed. See some of you open your eyes. So imagine you've just woken up. Keep your eyes closed. But imagine you've just woken up. And basically you've woken up and you found yourself on a plane. The healing is enough. You've seen yourself, you're on a plane. You've just woken up, you don't remember anything. So you just randomly end up on a plane. And on the plane you sat there and you've got the best food, you've got the best company, you've got the best everything you can wish for. Everything you want is on that plane. So you and open your eyes. Can you imagine that plane? Are you going to be happy just to stay on that plane and keep eating biryani all day? Yeah? So no, the questions that would come to mind when you're on there would be like, one, how did I get here? Two, where is the plane going? Why am I? So they are questions that, if you compare it to childbirth, when we're born, it's exactly the same. We had our eyes closed, came out, and we were in basically a huge aeroplane. So the question to the right is, where are we going? Why are we here? How did we get here? And I want to end by reading another actually, there's something I forgot to. It was about the signs. So when you see all these signs and all this that we reflect on our own creation and the creation of the world, you see fulfillment in the word of God's word. Because in chapter 41, verse 53, we will show them our signs in the universe and in their own selves until it becomes manifest to them that this is the truth. So we see fulfillment in God's word when we look at the ayah. So I want to finish with one final ayah to reflect on. It says in chapter 4, verse 82, do they not consider the Qur'an, meaning the people, and everybody basically, do we not consider the Qur'an? Had it been from other than Allah, they would have surely found in it much discrepancy. Meaning there would have been much contradictions and doing things that were incorrect. Would have been a lack of fluency, a lack of we claim there isn't.